The world is not broken. It was never whole. It is the raw, unfiltered scream of blind hunger, a will that wants without reason, devours without rest, and dies unsatisfied. And you, yes, you were told it was beautiful, that life is a gift, that your pain has purpose, that the world is full of opportunities, just waiting for you to reach out and take them. But those who told you this, they lied, not out of malice, but out of fear. They couldn't bear the silence, so they filled it with stories. They couldn't face the abyss, so they handed you a blindfold and called it hope. But hope, if untethered from truth, is not medicine, it's a sedative. And this world, in its marrow, is not kind. It is not cruel either, it is indifferent. That is the most unbearable thing of all. You want to believe there's a reason for your suffering. But the truth is simpler and colder. There is a reason you suffer, because you were born. Because to exist is to want, and to want is to ache. Desire is the mechanism of life, and that mechanism is flawed. Not metaphorically, but biologically, metaphysically, relentlessly flawed. This is the core of Schopenhauer's truth. We are the puppets of a will that does not ask for our consent. It operates through us, speaks through us, and when it is done, discards us. And in this bleak machinery, the weak man is born. Not all pain strengthens. Some pain festers. Some pain, when buried, when denied, rots into something grotesque, a quiet bitterness, a silent desperation that poisons everything it touches. You see him everywhere, the weak man. Not weak in body, perhaps. Not weak in loudness, in vanity, in dominance. No, these are his costumes, his camouflage. His weakness lives deeper. It is emotional, existential. He cannot sit in silence because silence reminds him of what he is, hollow. He cannot stand still because stillness unveils the hunger gnawing at his insides. So he moves frantically. He builds, buys, shouts, controls. Always reaching, never arriving. Always posturing, never at peace. He does not hurt others because he is strong. He hurts them because he is empty. Because deep down he suspects he is nothing, and so he must make others feel less than him, just to breathe. This is the paradox of the cruel man. He punishes others for the weakness he refuses to acknowledge in himself. And this begins early. A boy is humiliated, ignored, made to feel small. But instead of facing that pain, he buries it, covers it with ambition, anger, performance. He becomes a man, but not a whole one. He becomes brittle, defensive. And from this fracture grows cruelty, masked as confidence. No tyrant was ever born whole. No abuser was ever made from love. These are the children of shame, dressed in the armor of adulthood. And the world in its blindness rewards them. We have built a world where weakness is not healed, it is marketed. Confidence has become costume. Success, a charade. In a society that fears depth, the loudest surface wins. Social media has weaponized identity. You no longer need to be anything only to appear. To posture, to brand your persona like a product, sell it back to the crowd and call the applause validation. But behind every curated image is the same gnawing hunger, the same sleepless will, the same frightened child in a grown man's shell. Modern masculinity is a theater. Influencers parade as alphas. Entrepreneurs pose as prophets. The internet overflows with gurus teaching men how to dominate, how to seduce, how to conquer, never how to sit in silence and feel. Because silence is where the lie dies. And in the absence of true strength, which is quiet, patient, inward, the weak man mimics power. He shouts, he flexes, he lashes out. But power is not noise. Power is clarity. Yet clarity requires solitude. And solitude is unbearable for a man who cannot be alone with his own thoughts. And so he clings to institutions that mirror his need for control. Bureaucracies, hierarchies, dogmas, systems that give the illusion of stability, chains that feel like protection. But these systems are built not by strong men, but by frightened ones. Weak men build cruel worlds not to oppress others, but to suppress their own panic. They would rather rule over ashes than live in the mirror of their own unimportance. See this clearly. You are not above it. Neither am I. This is not judgment, it is diagnosis. You do not need to pretend to be strong. You need to be honest. Your pain is not your enemy. Your illusion is. The man who can stare into the void without blinking, that is strength. And it is rare. He who cannot sit with silence will try to own the world instead. Power is not the root of cruelty. Insecurity is. The weak man does not dominate because he's capable. He dominates because he is afraid of being seen, of being dismissed, of being irrelevant. He cannot accept that he is not central to the universe, so he builds tiny kingdoms, in his home, in his relationships, in his politics. And in those fragile empires, he becomes a god, petty, wrathful, always watching. To control is easier than to feel, and so control becomes his drug. The more hollow he feels inside, the more tightly he grips the world outside. His love becomes possession, his work becomes obsession, his conversations, interrogations. Because surrender, vulnerability, true openness, they would expose the unbearable truth that he does not trust he is enough, even for himself. And here lies the quiet horror of dominance. It is not expression, but anesthesia. Control is how the weak man calms his own panic, and when he cannot control, he punishes. Sometimes with words, sometimes with silence, sometimes with blood. What you mistake for anger in such men is often terror, panic masquerading as rage. They were never taught how to suffer without destroying something, so they turn fear into fury, shame into force, and worst of all, they believe they are right. They confuse obedience with love. They confuse silence with respect. They think submission is intimacy, but what they seek is not connection, it is conquest. This is the echo of unloved boys pretending to be kings. Every cruelty you witness was once a boy's unanswered cry. Weak men do not simply wound others. They wound the world. They pass their pain like a family heirloom, disguising it as tradition. What begins as insecurity in a single man metastasizes through generations. He becomes a father not to protect, but to mold. His children are taught obedience, not curiosity. His son learns that power is survival. His daughter learns that silence is safety. Thus begins the inheritance of fear, not consciously, not with malice, but with the quiet, persistent force of the unresolved. The family becomes the first battlefield, and from there, the wounded man steps into institutions, into leadership, into religion, into war, carrying with him a hunger that was never named. You wonder why the world repeats its nightmares. It is because pain is taught more faithfully than love. Because unresolved weakness, when scaled, becomes systemic cruelty. You do not need millions to oppress. You only need one man too afraid to face himself. Look at history. Tyrants are not created by strength, but by humiliation. Fascism does not grow from confidence. It grows from grievance, shame, and the need to make others feel what one dares not feel alone. The modern man, seduced by power, forgets the planet entirely. He drills into it, defiles it, burns it all in the name of progress. But what is progress to a man who cannot sit still? What is growth to one who fears what he already has? When man cannot govern his own will, he tries to govern the earth. And so we arrive at this moment in history, burning, divided, loud but hollow, a species that knows how to manipulate atoms, but not how to sit with sadness. We conquered the world and became strangers to ourselves. Breathe. No one is coming to save us, but there is strange comfort in that. For when you let go of rescue, you can finally begin the slow, brutal work of waking up. You cannot fix the world, but you can refuse to add to its cruelty. That, in itself, is a quiet revolution, not strong, not pure, just awake. There comes a moment sometimes late in life, sometimes all at once, when a man grows too tired to pretend. The masks fall, the noise fades, and what's left is not enlightenment, but exhaustion. He looks around and realizes nothing he chased ever silenced the hunger. Not money, not applause, not desire. Every victory evaporated in the same wind that carried his fears. The world he sees now was never built to satisfy him. It was built to perpetuate the will to keep him wanting, grasping, performing. And in that quiet moment, something subtle shifts. He does not become happy, he becomes lucid. Lucidity is not joy. It is clarity stripped of anesthesia. It is the sober acceptance that existence itself is contradiction, that the will drives us to suffer. Yet we cling to it as if it were our only salvation. The awakened man no longer fights for control. He understands that control is the disease, not the cure. He does not seek to dominate others or himself, but to observe, to witness the machinery of his own mind with detached compassion. His goal is not to escape pain, but to see through it. Pain, once observed without resistance, loses its venom. It becomes texture, not tragedy. The awakened man walks through a cruel world not as a conqueror, but as a listener. His silence is not fear, it is understanding. He knows that every scream for power, every act of cruelty, every desperate grasp for meaning is a confession. I cannot sit with myself. He does not mock this. He grieves it, because he knows that he, too, was once ruled by the same panic, the same trembling will. True strength, he realizes, is not in the clenched fist, but the open hand that no longer needs to grasp. To live awake is not to overcome suffering, but to coexist with it, to let the ache hum quietly in the background, while you continue to breathe, to see, to move. The cruel world remains, but your participation in its madness ends. The world shouts, the wise whisper. What, then, is left for the lucid soul to do? He withdraws not into cowardice, but into clarity. He no longer seeks applause, for he knows praise and condemnation come from the same crowd. He no longer strives to be understood, for understanding is a rare language spoken by few. The quiet man's revolt is not loud, not heroic. It is subtle and visible. He no longer feeds the machinery of cruelty. He no longer plays the roles demanded by weak men performing strength. He refuses to build his identity upon illusion. His rebellion is in restraint, choosing silence where others scream, patience where others rage, humility where others perform grandeur. He does not flee the world, he simply stops negotiating with it. To modern ears, this sounds like defeat, but it is the opposite. For what can be taken from the man who desires nothing unnecessary? What power does manipulation hold over the one who sees through its theater? The quiet man becomes an island of stillness in a fevered world. His very presence is unsettling, because he cannot be baited by noise. He has seen the core of things and found it empty, but honest. That honesty becomes his peace. The modern world fears sadness. It calls it dysfunction. It prescribes pills, distractions, affirmations. But sadness, when examined, is simply vision. It is what happens when the veil tears and you see clearly for the first time. The tragic vision is not pessimism. It is realism stripped of delusion. It sees beauty and decay intertwined. It knows that joy, too, carries the seed of loss, and that to cling to either is to suffer more deeply. Schopenhauer said, "To live is to suffer, and to survive is to find meaning in suffering." But meaning here is not divine. It is not granted by gods or fate. It is carved by awareness, the act of seeing truth without the comfort of myth. The tragedy, when accepted, becomes liberation. When you no longer demand that life be fair, you stop being its victim. When you stop expecting happiness as a reward, you start tasting the bittersweet calm of acceptance. The awakened man does not seek salvation. He seeks understanding, the kind that neither inflates nor despairs. He carries sorrow like a lantern, lighting the path for others lost in self-deception. He does not preach joy. He embodies stillness. And perhaps that is the only redemption possible. To be still amid the chaos. To look upon the cruelty of weak men and not become one. Pause here. Do not reach for meaning too quickly. Let the words echo. Feel the emptiness beneath them, that quiet ache that is neither despair nor relief, but simply the truth of being awake. You are not broken. You are merely seeing without filters. The pain that rises in you now, that is not failure. It is birth. Every illusion that dies makes room for clarity. And clarity, though cold, is clean. Nothing is promised. Nothing is coming. But look, the storm is honest, and you are still here. There is a point at which the striving ceases. Not because you've won, and not because you've lost, but because you see, finally, that the game itself was the cage. This is not depression. Depression says, I want to live, but I can't. Surrender says, I see that even living is a question mark, and I no longer need to answer it. The will that blind hunger at the core of your being will never quiet by being fed. It quiets when you no longer believe it is you. You are not your desires. You are the field in which they arise, pass, and return. You are not your suffering. You are the one aware of it, and you are not your story. You are the silence between its chapters. But the modern world does not honor this. It wants you chasing shadows. It wants you producing, purchasing, projecting. It wants your attention, and if it cannot have your love, it will feast on your outrage. To wake up is to starve this system, to no longer be available for manipulation, to be still, and in that stillness, become ungovernable. But don't confuse this with revolution. The awakened man does not want to fix the world. He knows he cannot. And more importantly, he knows the world is not meant to be fixed. It is not broken. It is tragic. and there's a difference. Broken things can be repaired. Tragic things must be witnessed, understood, and eventually let go. This is the final task, not to conquer your suffering, but to outgrow the need to be rescued from it. In the absence of striving, something unexpected appears. The ordinary becomes luminous. The sound of rain on a window, the slowness of breath, the way sunlight moves across the floor. These are not spiritual epiphanies. They are not proof of meaning. They are simply real, and in their reality, they anchor you. Weak men chase spectacle. Strong men posture in public. But the lucid man finds depth in repetition, in waiting, in doing nothing that needs applause. There is, in this, a quiet return to sanity. You were never meant to be exceptional. That was a trap. You were meant to be here conscious, present, free of illusion. And in this smallness, a vastness opens. You are not the center of the universe. And thank God, because the center is always the most unstable place to stand. Let others seek legacy. Let them hunger for eternity. You may choose instead to tend your corner of reality with care, with gentleness, with the honesty that comes from no longer needing to win. This, too, is strength. So what remains then? Death. The final dissolution. The last breath. That, too, must be faced without flinching. The weak man fears death because he has never truly lived. He has existed in simulation, in performance, clinging to every moment as if it could make him real. He treats death as an enemy because it threatens the mask he never dare remove. But the lucid man knows death is not coming. Death has been here all along. Every second is a dying. Every breath is the end of something. Every moment past is already gone and you survived it. To fear death is to miss the miracle of impermanence. To accept death is to begin living not in defiance, but in intimacy with it. You were not born to last. You were born to burn briefly, see clearly, and vanish without regret. The world will not remember you, and that's beautiful, because it means you are free to live without performance. Take this truth and hold it, not with fists, but with open palms. There is no salvation, there is no redemption arc. There is only presence and the courage to remain conscious in the face of absurdity. You will suffer, you will fail, you will be forgotten. And yet, none of this cancels the raw beauty of now. Do not reach for meaning like a drowning man reaches for air. Let meaning find you not as a doctrine, but as a quiet pattern in the chaos. Sometimes that pattern is a laugh, sometimes a tear, sometimes just the absence of striving, the miracle of enough. And now, we return to where we began. The world is not broken. It was never whole. It is the theater of blind will, endlessly devouring itself. But in that devouring, in that roaring cyclical madness, a single light flickers, the human capacity to witness, to watch without reaching, to stand in the center of suffering without flinching, to say with steady breath, yes, this is pain, and I am here anyway. This is not hope. Hope is too fragile, too clean. This is defiance without drama, presence without illusion. The strange freedom of a man who no longer seeks to escape what is. You may not be saved, but you may be seen by yourself at last. And that is enough. The truth does not liberate you. It removes your excuses. You've come this far, which means something in you already knew. Something beneath the noise of your daily rituals, your habits, your ambitions, your mask already suspected that this world, as it is, will not save you. That strength is not what they told you. That cruelty does not come from power, but from panic. Now you've heard it. Not a new truth, but an ancient one. A truth buried beneath optimism, beneath religion, beneath the false glow of modern convenience. That to be born is to suffer, that most men, unable to face this, become cruel, and that freedom lies not in overcoming pain, but in ceasing to run from it. So what now? Let me be honest, this is not a call to action. The awakened man does not rush to change the world. He sees that most action, when driven by panic, simply recreates the problem under a new name. Instead, live differently, quietly, without illusion. First, begin with stillness. Practice being in a room without reaching for distraction. Let discomfort speak. You'll find that what you fear is not pain, it's presence. Second, stop building yourself as a monument. You are not a brand. You are not a legacy. You are a breath, temporary, fleeting, and free, the moment you stop trying to be permanent. Third, speak less. Listen more. Not because silence is holy, but because noise is often a form of hiding. Learn to hear the music in discomfort, the rhythm of vulnerability. Fourth, refuse to perform. Do not be cruel to appear strong. Do not be loud to appear right. Let others shout. Let them crave followers, likes, submission. Your life is not a product. Fifth, learn to grieve. Grieve your illusions, your wasted years, your false identities. Let them rot in peace. From their remains, something simpler can grow. A man who no longer needs to lie to himself. And finally, don't confuse clarity with coldness. The lucid man is not dead inside. He is simply no longer desperate. He still loves, still feels, still laughs, sometimes even harder than before, because he knows that every moment is temporary, and knowing that, he cherishes it. You will never be whole. No one is. The light you seek is not waiting at the top of some mountain. It flickers behind your ribs, quiet, ignored. You were not born to win. You were born to see. So see. See the weakness that breeds cruelty. See the culture that masks it. See the institutions that reward it. But more importantly, see your own reflection in it all. And do not flinch. That is the only dignity left. The world will not remember you. But perhaps in this brief, bitter, beautiful moment, you can remember yourself. And if you can do that, without delusion, without panic, without shame, then perhaps you have already won. Not in the way they taught you, but in the only way that matters.